Next, I'd like to introduce a man who knows a little bit about open space in Morris County, Jay Thompson. Jay is an original member, founding member of the county's Open Space Preservation Trust Fund, and 25 years later, he's the chairman still. So, Jay, I don't know what caused you to want all this punishment, but you're here 25 years doing this. He has volunteered his time and expertise, historical knowledge of the open space process, helping make it a great success. When I spoke to Jay recently, he told me stories of some historical figures in Morris County, Willard Hedden and Henry Sperling, and their influence in getting him interested and involved in public service and preservation. Jay has served a record of 13 years on the Open Space Committee, a record of 7 years as its chair. That's dedication, Jay. Thank you. Please welcome Jay Thompson.
Thank you, Larry. First of all, I want to say it's true. I was 12 years old when I first served on the committee. Actually, there's a few committee members here today on the current committee. I'd like them to just stand and be recognized. I don't want to miss anybody, so if our current committee members could just stand and be recognized. Wow, 25 years, but I'd like to take you back for a moment to the decade of the 1980s. Ronald Reagan and George Bush 41 were the presidents. The economy was roaring. The BMW was the status car to own. Dinks, double income, no kids, and yuppies, young urban professionals were a thing. The McMansion was born. Developers could not build big enough or fast enough. Gordon Gekko in the movie Wall Street famously said, "Greed is good." There was a group of forward thinkers who were concerned about the quality of life in Morris County called Morris 2000. They were looking ahead at the coming millennial and tried to address things like employment, education, traffic, housing, and overall quality of life. They looked to the counties to the east and didn't want to believe that that's what we had to look forward to. Don Palmer from Long Valley was the one who brought the idea of open space preservation to Morris 2000. And when I think about how that conversation must have went when the idea was presented to the freeholders, it must have sounded like this. We want to propose a new special dedicated tax whose purpose is to preserve land. We want to prevent development, which means less ratables, which means less property taxes. And there should be a special referendum for the voters to approve. Are you nuts? And the politicians went for it. The freeholders at the time were Tony Bucco Sr., Frank Drutzler, Pete O'Hagan, Pat Hyland, Sissy Lories, John Murphy, and Ed Tam. Not only did the voters go for it, but they went for it overwhelmingly 2-1. They subsequently went for it several more times to increase it and passed it by the same margins. The interesting thing is that all 39 towns had the same 2-1 result. Even the voters in urban towns that had very little open space available realized the value of what the county was trying to do. Once approved, the freeholders had to decide how it was going to be managed. I think Don Palmer and Walter Critch had a lot of breakfast meetings at the Chester Diner. It was agreed that the committee was to have a wide representation with 15 members on a rotating basis. The 39 municipalities would be divided into 8 regions. County boards would each get a seat. The MUA, the Park Commission, Agricultural Development Board, the County Planning Board, Historic Preservation, and 2 at-large members. To date, there have been 143 members serve on the committee. And what a first committee that was assembled. Just to name a few: Oscar Kincaid, Joe Mariziti Jr., Frank Markowitz, Katie Porter, Earl Spino, and our chair, Dr. Joe Weisberg. And of course, the staff at the county consisted of Walter Critch, Frank Pinto, and Tom Kenny. Boy, did I learn a lot. After all, I was only 12. Probably the most important work of the committee, besides wading through the applications, which, by the way, we had to develop, was the site visits. That first year, there were 19 projects. Perhaps one of the most memorable ones was right here at Liffy Island. I'd like to tell you a tale of a fateful trip that started out of a Lakeland port aboard a tiny ship supplied by the New Jersey State Police. If you thought Gilligan's Island ran into a storm, you should have been here 25 years ago when the committee tried to visit Liffy Island. Needless to say, we told Jefferson that their funding would be reduced if they lost any committee members. Not to worry, everybody made it back safe and sound, but a lot wetter. That first year, we funded 3 projects: Knuth Farm in Denville, Turkey Brook Park in Mount Olive, and Liffy Island here in Jefferson. Demand for dollars was great and funding was limited. It should be noted that the 16 projects that did not get funding that first round, almost all of them came back and were funded in subsequent rounds. I want to emphasize the development pressure at the time. Remember those dinks and yuppies? Well, when they replaced their lifestyle with baby on board stickers, remember these? They wanted McMansions and yards for their families. We would sometimes go on site visits and the developers' bulldozers would be clearing the land. How the towns convinced them not to build was a miracle. One example of this was Dickerson Mine Preserve project in Mine Hill. Had that one development been built, it would have doubled the population of the town, and it would have changed them and the surrounding towns forever. Some of the other projects that we now take for granted are active recreation complexes such as the Aerodrome in Boonton, Freedom Park in Randolph, Turkey Brook in Mount Olive. Fun fact, did you know that Turkey Brook Park, Mount Olive could not participate in Little League because they had high tension wires running over their outfields? Little League prohibited encumbrances on sanctioned fields. Turkey Brook enabled them to be able to participate in Little League. People who move here now think those complexes were always there. The towns have done an outstanding job of developing them into what they are today. But not all projects were for active recreation. There are some fine examples of passive recreation as well. Rock Pear in Kinnelon, AT&T Telcordia in Chester, Veterans Park in Roxbury, and Dickerson Mine Preserve in Mine Hill that I mentioned earlier. Not all projects were large in scope. Towns like Dover, Morristown, and Wharton have all had success in the program with much smaller pocket parks. Preservation has been so successful that many municipalities created their own open space trust funds to pay off their share of acquisition debt. It has been a combined effort between municipalities, County Open Space Trust Fund, New Jersey Green Acres, and nonprofits. Collectively, we have done great things. Ed Tam, who was one of those original freeholders and was mayor of my hometown in Randolph, coined the phrase, "Randolph, where life is worth living." He could have easily changed that to Morris County, where life is worth living. Those 7 freeholders who had the courage to embrace open space preservation at a time when it was not politically safe were giants, and today we stand on their shoulders. It has been an exciting time in Morris County history, and it has been a pleasure to serve. Thank you.